Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for our third session of the Thriving Gut series. Today, we are going to be talking about probiotics. My name is Abigail Seaver. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I specialize in healing gut conditions and digestive problems, balancing hormones, and treating autoimmune conditions. So I welcome you here today with Vasi and I, and probiotics are a huge topic. So let's just jump in and get started. So, what are probiotics? Probiotics, the word actually comes from a Greek term meaning for life. And so probiotics are actually live microorganisms, very small organisms. And they also are health promoting and life promoting. So the name seems very appropriate. So probiotics are microorganisms that are found throughout our digestive tract, and they are also found in certain types of foods, fermented foods, for instance. And there's a lot of similarity or crossover between fermented foods and the bacteria in our digestive tract. So these bacteria are no, they number in the trillions. So there's a huge quantity of them in the gut, and they have many benefits for us. So we're going to be talking about that. But in terms of probiotics that are found in foods or beverages or dietary supplements, in order to be called a probiotic, they have to um, have been shown to have a beneficial effect on the human body in research. And these products have to have been proven to have some live bacteria still remaining after that food is packaged or processed or however it's manufactured. And the two probiotic families that are most present in some of these probiotic products and foods and beverages that you may have heard of are called Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium strains. So, what do these microorganisms actually do? They actually have multiple benefits and multiple functions, and these functions are actually pretty diverse. So it's astonishing that these tiny little gut microorganisms can do such an array of things, but I'm just going to give you a brief list here. So, one of the things that they do is compete with pathogens or bad organisms for what are called adhesion sites. So basically, the beneficial bacteria um, outnumber and block pathogens or bad organisms from binding to the wall of the intestine and thereby prevent the pathogen from staying around very long and affecting our health. The probiotics also help to make a nice thick mucus layer along the lining of the intestine. Our intestines have a mucus layer that is a barrier to pathogens. And so the probiotics help to make this, and that helps to prevent the pathogens from getting through that intestinal lining, which is pretty thin, and getting into our bloodstream where they could make us sick, essentially. They also help to modulate the immune system. So probiotics actually promote and activate the two parts of our immune system. So we have, generally speaking, two parts to our immune system. Our innate immune system, which is the immune system that we were born with, which is a more of a general immune response. And then we have an adaptive immune system, which is something that we've developed over time in response to pathogens. So probiotics are actually very instrumental in keeping that system tuned up and working properly. Probiotics also increase the production of anti-inflammatory compounds called cytokines. So sufficient probiotics or beneficial bacteria can reduce inflammation in your intestines, and they can also reduce inflammation in your body as a whole. And then this seems like it's pretty far-fetched and pretty far from the gut, but probiotics can also be instrumental in helping you to make neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are chemicals that we think of as associated with the brain, but they include compounds like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA that help keep us calm and happy. And probiotics actually regulate the production of those neurotransmitters. So our mood and the balance of our emotions is actually, a lot of that is happening in the gut. A lot of the production of those neurotransmitters is happening in the gut. So a happy, healthy gut can help to promote a happy, healthy mood in many cases. And then what conditions do probiotics actually treat? So probiotics oftentimes seem like a very general, non-specific supplement, dietary supplement to us, and many of us maybe don't really know what they actually treat or what they would actually help us with specifically. So the research on probiotics has shown that they can be beneficial for atopic dermatitis, which is otherwise known as eczema. It's a very common skin condition, skin rash that often occurs in children but can occur in adults. So there's good research on eczema in the use of probiotics. Also, infectious diarrhea. So the treatment of infectious diarrhea, whether it be from a bacteria or from a virus, say food poisoning or a stomach virus, for instance, traveler's diarrhea. There's really good research showing that probiotics are beneficial in treating that type of diarrhea. Also, diarrhea that has been caused by antibiotics. So, taking antibiotics can sometimes cause diarrhea, and taking probiotics can treat that effectively. Also, irritable bowel syndrome. So, probiotics can have a balancing effect on the bowel and thereby help people who are having irritable bowel syndrome. So, that's a syndrome that's extremely common that can cause gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain. Oftentimes, folks are going back and forth between constipation and diarrhea and not finding a good balance, and the probiotics can help with that. Um, Also recurrent infections. So in my practice, I have found that recurrent infections like urinary tract infections, vaginal yeast infections, even recurrent sinus infections or ear infections can be prevented by taking probiotics or using probiotics regularly. And then there is research showing that probiotics might be beneficial for a whole host of other medical conditions, ranging from obesity to diabetes to cardiovascular disease, pulmonary disease, and even nervous system disorders. So there may be benefit for a whole system for a wide range of health conditions. So when I think about using probiotics in my practice, in general, I think about them as a modulating, balancing type of a substance. So, for instance, probiotics can dampen an overexcited immune system. So, like in the case of autoimmune disease, where your immune system is overacting and it's kind of going outside the normal boundaries of what it typically does, and it's attacking your own tissue. Probiotics can help to modulate and just dampen it and bring it down some. They can also bring an immune system up when it's under functioning. So when your immune system is low and it's not working enough, it's not giving you enough protection against pathogens, it can help to bring that up. The same thing with the bowel. when there's alternating constipation and diarrhea and you can't quite come to a good balance and come back to normal, probiotics can have a balancing effect in that sense. So I think about them as modulating and balancing in many cases. So, are there any situations where probiotics are not helpful? So probiotics are contraindicated, so they are not recommended in people who are severely immune suppressed. So let's say you have cancer and you are on chemotherapy and your white blood cell count is extremely low. In that situation, probiotics are not indicated because the bacteria in the probiotics can actually make you sick as the same as if a pathogen would make you sick. So hopefully most of us will not encounter that situation, but that is really one of the only times that we don't give probiotics. But probiotics can also cause some side effects, especially if you are already experiencing a great deal of gas and bloating, or if you have SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And we went into that extensively in our last session. So if you're experiencing a great deal of gas and bloating on a regular basis, adding in more bacteria in the form of probiotics can sometimes make those symptoms worse. So what I recommend in that case is to see me, and we'll talk about using an herbal antimicrobial regimen, and then we'll start using probiotics to bring in more beneficial bacteria. But sometimes initially, probiotics make your symptoms worse, and we don't want that. So if you have tried taking probiotics and they really don't agree with you, they make your digestion actually worse, then see me because there are probably some things that need to be corrected before you can actually start using probiotics and having them be beneficial. So, what to look for in a probiotic? What you're going to want to look for is some specific things on the label of the probiotic, including the genus and the species. So that's the name of the actual bacterial species found in the product. And then the number of colony forming units or CFUs, which is how they measure the number of billion bacteria that are present in that product. So each type of bacteria should state the genus and the species. So let's say Lactobacillus acidophilus is the genus and the species, and then it might say 5 billion after that, and that is the number of colony forming units. And so the different types of species that you might be looking for include Lactobacillus species, Bifidobacterium species, Bacillus species, and Saccharomyces boulardii, which is actually a yeast. These are some of the most researched types of commercially available probiotics. And you might find others, but those would be some of the common ones to look for in a probiotic. And you also want to pay good attention to how the probiotic should be stored. So there should be clear instructions on the bottle that say this should be refrigerated or this product is shelf stable. If it needs to be refrigerated and it hasn't been, then it's not going to stay fresh for very long and won't be as effective. But probiotics that are shelf stable are becoming more common, so it is easier to find one that does not need to be refrigerated nowadays. Um, I would also either see me or do a little research about the condition that you're aiming to treat with probiotics to see what the research has recommended as far as the species that are most beneficial and the number of colony forming units that are most beneficial. So I find especially that the number of billion probiotics that are in a product can make a huge difference in terms of whether it does anything noticeable for you. So sometimes I have patients coming in who are taking one capsule of a low potency probiotic to treat diarrhea, and I might have them quadruple the dose or even more. And at that point, we would see an effect. So sometimes the dosage can make a big, big difference as far as whether you see a benefit or you don't see a benefit. So I also highly recommend including probiotic foods. So we've discussed this in other sessions, but I'm going to just run through them again. These are naturally fermented foods that are available at your local health food store, or you can make them in your home. And they include yogurt, kefir, naturally fermented sauerkraut, kombucha, miso, and tempeh. So these foods actually contain some of the species that we've just talked about, and those foods are beneficial when eaten as a food. And then, as we discussed in some of our other sessions, including prebiotic fiber foods is important with your probiotic food. So they don't need to be eaten at the same meal or at the same time, but you need to eat them as part of your diet because those foods that are rich in prebiotic fibers feed the beneficial bacteria and keep them happy and healthy. So sources of those prebiotic fibers or starches include onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, artichokes, beans, green bananas. So these foods can be included in your diet regularly to keep your good bacteria happy and healthy. And you can augment your probiotic regimen or your fermented food regimen with making sure you're getting those prebiotic fibers in your diet so that your gut bacteria stay healthy. So that's what I wanted to address tonight. Please contact me with any questions, or if you'd like help with getting your gut tuned up, I'd be happy to help you. And I'm going to turn things over to Vasi at this point. Thank you and good night.